Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Sanjeev Mota from BNK Securities. On behalf of BNK, I welcome all of you to this fireside chat. We have with us Mr. Raghu, Managing Director and Promoter of Updater Services. Hi, Raghu. And
Hi.
also Ms. Radha, who's the CFO. Uh, Welcome both of you to this fireside chat. It's always interesting to talk to exciting companies, and you definitely you're one of them.
Thank
We
you.
have with us Deep as well, Deep Shah, who looks at, among other things, like he does TMT, but he also looks at all the business services company. So the way we'll do it, Raghu, is I'll start by asking some strategic questions, and then Deep will ask a bit more company specific questions.
Sure.
Thank you so much for doing this, Raghu and Radha.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so let's start in the very beginning, Raghu. I think you were one of the first ones to start an integrated facility management company way back, and I'm sure the journey has been interesting and challenging, and now looks like pretty exciting going forward. So maybe you can talk a bit about your journey and how you started this, and where do how, what are the challenges that you faced, and where are you now?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Love to do that. Okay, I will keep it quick, short, in a nutshell. I started this business way back in late 80s and 90. The whole idea or strategy was get into a business which can be scaled quickly without much capital, and the kind of not a capital intensive business for scaling. So hence the services business. Also, one important point was I didn't want a business, get into a business where it was overcrowded. So the facilities management space way back in 90 and late 80s was kind of non-existent in the sense there was no organized players. It was there, but a non small unorganized sector and very splintered. So that's when we thought we should get into this, and it took us a little time. We built the capabilities first before getting into the business. However, it was not called integrated facilities management those days. It was pure play facilities management, like one cleaning service or a plumbing service or a electrical maintenance, those kinds of things. So around that time when we started is when I built the whole concept as a put everything in one basket and offer it to the customers. So it took a while for business to accept, but it did happen. It did happen very rapidly with the IT boom coming in, because with IT came large spaces. They occupy 1 million square feet, 2 million, IT or ITES. So that's when they picked up. Also, over the first decade between 90 to 2000, we built all the capabilities like handling all kinds of facilities management services, in the sense soft services, hard services, engineering services, support services, though not staffing in a big way, but a little bit of staffing. So that was what we did the first decade. And also the market took time to accept the integrated facilities where they could give all services to one service provider. We also built capabilities for a pan-India operation, so we could deliver our services standardized, uniform across the country. So that was the key. And customers actually liked it because there were customers who were having multiple offices. So they would want the same kind of standard services across all their offices. So that was the key thing. So when we started, like I said, there was no organized player. So we were the only organized player and built the business. As the business grew, we also did one interesting thing the first decade is built capabilities of doing facilities management for manufacturing or industry, which is slightly different from a soft building or an IT park. In the sense, the kind of assets they have is different. They have compressed air, they have boilers, they have fire systems which are different. So it's a different asset base. And we also build capabilities, do large infrastructures like airports and ports and metros. So this is what happened. The first decade we built, when we started, we were the market leaders. We still happen to be market leaders. Probably the industry report says we are number two, but my point is we maintain that leadership role. So that's what we built. became pan-India, became completely capable of handling all types of facilities at all sizes. So that is how we started. Like, to answer the question, I wanted to get into a business which can be scaled without much capital.
Great. Raghu, one thing is in terms of growth, and that we have seen in most business services company, not just I'm talking about facility management or business services, but we have seen that, for example, in other like healthcare services and so on. A lot of people, the way they grow is through acquisitions, right? And you've also done that. But if you can kind of talk a bit about your philosophy of acquiring companies, like, what are the kind of metrics that you look at when you acquire? And if you can talk about, yeah, so in terms of, let's first talk about just the previous acquisitions that you've done. Is there a common thread? Is there a way you look at things? How about, yeah, you can talk a bit about that.
Sure, great. See, the acquisition strategy came on the after 2000. So until then, we were growing organically. There was enough business. There was enough kind of space to grow, and we still do have it even today. It is not that it isn't there in the IFM space. Interestingly, what happened around 2000, around that, we saw the whole facilities management business having a very, very tight price sensitivity. The margins were coming down. In the sense, it became more like an international market and margins. So that's what it is outside of India and the more developed countries. It's about 4-5% margins. So our margins also started coming down in line with that. And that's when we thought we should do the inorganic acquisition route, where we had 2, 3, or 4 ground rules, plus I could say many other rules. One was to be in services. Like I said, that was the whole strategy, not to have a business which are capital intensive or asset heavy. So the first rule was to be in the service business, and then it has to be more margin accretive than what we are doing already. So that was the purpose. We want to grow up the value. 3, it has to be B2B, because we are not, I mean, we are not geared up to do the B2C business. We have never done it. So it's not that bad business, but we have not done that. So we want to stick to B2B. Like I said, it has to be services. That's when my first acquisition was a small company called Avon, which does mail room management, MAIL. So where they optimize mail management, optimize courier, cargo, all that. They still do it, and they've been doing very well. They also do a lot of niche logistics today. So from the whole idea was to get into more business services and build a business services platform. The common thread being, again, I told you, B2B services, and it has to have a kind of adding value to our other existing businesses. Now, if you look at mailroom, that was the first one we did. Then we did food services, all that. But the strategy behind it was to build a platform where we could go to the customer and sell more than one service. That's what we do today. So this is the whole idea. And the more important point was, I said, the margin accretive. So even today, if you look at we call that as the BSS, which is the business support service, and IFM, the revenue wise, they could be almost equal 50-50. But if you look at the profits, it'll be 60 or 65% coming from the BSS, because they are higher margin. So that was the strategy, and that's what it's worked out. To tell you on a very high level, that's what we did.
Great.
And just to complement what
Yeah.
he said is, he managed to acquire them in the right price. That is also very critical
Sure.
for us.
Yeah. And in terms of people, so you not just acquired companies, in a way you acquired people, you acquired the promoters who were running those companies, right? So what was your philosophy in terms of how did you handle that part? Because these are small, not that big scaled up businesses. So promoters become very important in that whole setup,
Absolutely.
right? So how did you play with that?
Yeah, like I told you, we had many ground rules. One of the rule was, the promoter fit. So it is not very easy to find always all the time, because you need the kind of, first of all, the business to be target should be, you should be interested in the promoter who is keen to grow the business. We don't want to implement a business where the promoter want to exit the next day. So that is the culture we built. And if you look at it, it's a no-brainer, because the promoter himself is a successful guy, because all our businesses were not a turnaround business. All businesses were number one. in their space when they acquired them, and they still happen to be number one. So they are all successful businessmen. So the idea was, these promoters, we have to retain them. So that was one of the rules. And it's not that all the time you will find that kind of a target, but then there are there because they also grow. We have a model where the promoter has an earn-out model, and all promoters have a stake in the parent company, in sense in terms of ESOPs. So we built the kind of culture where we don't want to lose the talent because they have built successful businesses, and there is no point, changing people who have already done great business. It's not a business which we bought and we've turned them around. We've never done that. We'll never do that. We would rather pay more but get a market leader which will fit us. If you look at the fitment, is either we should be able to grow them much into 2x, 3x, or they should be able to add more capabilities for our existing business. So that was the rule we've always had. And in fact, until last year, the promoter of Matrix, Bala, was on the board of UDS. So that is the idea, and all the promoters still contribute. As I told you, it's not easy all the time to find only that kind of targets and promoters, but so far it's been good, and it's not that it could happen all the time. But that was the strategy. It's worked out so far well.
But also, I think, as you said, in terms of acquisition, what you've tried to do so far is all on business services side and not on the facility management side, right?
Because
Yeah.
when we did facilities management side, we still think we could grow it ourselves. We don't need to grow that business inorganically,
Right.
unless until we are open. Also, I'm not saying we'll close it down, unless until we find some facilities management side businesses which we don't have capabilities. Could be, let's say, I told you 35% of business comes from manufacturing and industry. So let's say that testing business, let's say material, non-invasive testing, these kinds of, but you could club it under facilities management. But those kinds of businesses we will look at inorganic. Pure play facilities management, we believe we can grow it ourselves because we will still grow at that 14-15%. We will try to accelerate that, but I think that's fairly decent growth and market share we have. So in the FM space, we don't intend to do inorganic unless we find something very exceptional.
Sure, sir. I'll come back to the business services part in terms of the growth opportunities and so on. But maybe if you can just talk about the challenges that you face, because it's a very people-heavy business, you have to keep hiring and so on, training and so on. In terms of the key challenges,
Yeah, I think we lost your audio, but I still heard the question. I will, I heard most of it, the question. See, our business and our strength should be on people. So this is a challenge, but then we can't call this as a challenge in our business because that's our business. Because our business is with people. So we have to have the strength of sourcing, training, and retaining. So that has been the case, not now, even the last 10 years. So more and more you go down the pyramid, more and more you go to the blue collar, it is going to get difficult. As the country advances, the blue collar job is going to get tougher and tougher. But that's the job, that's our business, that's our strength. Being able to do it, yes, it is difficult, but we can't say that as a problem because that's our business. So we have a large sourcing team across the country, especially in labor surplus states like the Northeast, Jharkhand, Assam, those kinds of states. We recruit people on a daily basis. We train people. Yes, if we had people readily available, then my margins will improve another 2-3%. So that is not the case. It's never going to be the case. This has been the problem last 10 years. It's just not now. As we progress more and more, I think this blue collar will get more and more scarce. Yes, we're building it with a lot of technology, adding it, but however, we still need a lot number of people. So that's a challenge, but that's our business.
what about regulations? And I think when we last met, we briefly talked about the security space, for example, where, regulations are not that clear cut. So how do you take a call? One is on regulation, what are the challenges there? And second, some areas can be gray areas where, if you can talk a bit about that in terms of how are you looking at these things and how, as a company, you decide to take a call.
Yeah. We've been an 100% compliant company from the day we started. So we don't want to play there with the regulations. Even a gray area, we don't touch. So we're very clear. It has to be black and white. However, over the years, I've seen it's improved drastically. When we started to what it is, or even 10 years back, it was completely different. Each state, you need to file different papers, different regulations. It's getting more and more streamlined. I have no doubt in the next 2-3 years, it will become, after the new wage code and the new labor laws coming, it will become uniform and smooth. Yes, regulations are there. That is the case in any country you work. We have really worked that very clearly saying that we'll stick to what is right. We'll not even see, even if there's a gray area, we will not touch it. So that's why I told you last time is the guarding services we don't want to, because the regulations are not very clear. So that is a problem. But I can tell you, I've seen the last 2 decades, it's been an improvement completely year on year in terms of outsourcing, in terms of labor laws, in terms of government intervention, in terms of paperwork. Everything is becoming more and more simple. I'll tell you, once this new labor, that the wage code comes, it'll get even more simple. So that's what I've read the whole thing. It is still not implemented, but once it's implemented, it should get very easy. So that's how it is.
So maybe if you can just talk a bit about the guarding service, why you're not there, because that seems like a very adjacent area to you, and potentially you can grow quite a bit in that area.
Absolutely, it's very adjacent. Unfortunately, that industry works. I'm not talking of the service provider or the end user, the customer. I'm talking even the employees want to work more than 8 hours. They want to work 12 hours. So that's how the industry has been. It's an industry practice. So what would happen? Legally, you're not allowed to do it unless you pay them a double wage. That is, you can't afford it, neither the customer. So that's a gray area. People work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. So that is why we didn't go, because it's so adjacent for us. But however, we thought that that's not something because the industry practices are different. We thought we will not enter now.
Right. So what you're saying is that if you were to pay them double, that will take away all the margins.
No, if you wait to pay him double for 4 hours, you'll as well have one more person.
That's right.
So instead of paying a person 12 hours, you pay him double, then it's paying the third person. So it becomes unviable.
Right. So if you go by the letter of law, it kind of becomes unviable.
Yeah.
But I guess that's how, and you've decided to stay away because of that factor.
Yeah, but typically majority of the industry works that way.
Right.
So that's something you can't fight an industry practice now. So that's why we stayed away.
Right.
So it's not a question of which company is doing it or which customer is using it, but the fact is that's the industry practice.
Sure. So coming to regulation, and you talked about growth opportunities and so on, and you talked about, maybe if you can talk about some of the regulations that have come in, or even the budget talked about some of the factors. What is making you very excited about any of these things? Or
I see that governments more and more are becoming more and more progressive in terms of employment generation, in a place of simplifying labor laws, simplifying all these codes. That is where it's very exciting. Yes, we are enjoying little benefits because of certain government policies like the ATJJAA, where we create new employment, we get some income tax bit out. However, we've not really used it to the full extent, because last couple of years we have, like I have already called out, we have exited certain unviable contracts. So our net growth has just been about 10-12%. So that is not, but that may kick in, but I would only want to keep that as an additional extra bonus which is coming in. But however, whatever the budget, whatever we have read on the new incentives and all, I'm yet to look at that benefits today. We just don't know how it's going to pan out. They're still not completely notified. It's just been announced. So we need to see how that, I'm talking about the new ones which has come up last budget.
Yeah.
Those incentives of 1 lakh for every new employee you get, it's a little unclear, but we will definitely work on that. Once we get the proper notification, we will look at it and see if they're going to benefit much. But as of for our business plans or our projections, we have not, factored these. If these come in, they are bonuses. So to answer your question, it is becoming more easier. But once with the new code comes, it looks like much simplified version. I don't even need to file in different states, different paper.
Right. So if let's say regulations or on labor law and things become easier, is that a good thing for an outsourcing agency like yours, or is actually it's like not companies can then will start doing it themselves? What's your thought on that?
No, companies will not do it themselves. Otherwise, they would have done it even without that, because that's easier. In fact, the laws are different for a company doing in-house. They don't even need to go. It's like, for example, if you look at, let's say, fleet operators, people who run these buses, cars for the companies. The company can buy the cars and buses themselves and use it, but it's outsourced because of the expertise there. So that is not the problem. The problem is the easing of labor laws would do like more. It is defined, not only is easing. It's getting defined much more clear, so that gray is becoming either black or white. That's what I meant. So more than ease, it's at least very clear now. It's getting clearer and clearer. So companies will benefit, outsourcing companies like us will benefit, and typically employee will also benefit, because it's very clear. For example, the gratuity was something like there was a law which says you have to pay for after 4 years service, 4.5 years. There's so much of ambiguity there. He works in one place today, he goes to place 2 tomorrow. How do you calculate it? All that. Now it's very clear in the new code once it's implemented. If it's a short-term contract, you say pay the gratuity that year only, within that year. So it's getting clearer. So we can also talk to our customers much more clear now, saying that this is what the new law is.
So let's move to the two parts where you said facility management and business services. Business services, while it is 40% of your business, it makes 60% of the
Yeah, roughly about 50-50 of the business, but it makes 60% of our profits.
profits. And in terms of growth, looks like business services where it's much more exciting, a lot more areas. Maybe if you can talk about a couple of examples where you see good growth also, and where the margins are also much higher. And you can talk about your strategy there.
Sure. That has been the strategy when we started the inorganic route to get into business services where it's higher margin, which has been the case in our all our acquisitions. So all these business services, we have three large verticals. One is the sales enablement. Then we have the employee background verification. Then we have the audit and assurance, which is basically audit assurance of logistics, audit assurance of claims processing for FMCG, these kind of businesses. So they've always been above between 12 to 18% margins, whereas our FM has been avoiding 5 to 6% margins. So that is the size. I find that very exciting because of the accretive margin, and more importantly, the space they can grow much faster. And most of these services, for example, our sales enablement and lead generation business, our market size is just not India. We already operate in 18 countries sitting in India. So even our audit and assurance business in Matrix, they do again 18 countries of claims processing sitting in India. So the kind of opportunity is much larger. So kind of growth is much faster there. So we think we will grow at about 15 to 20% growth, or even more, because last year we grew at 21%. But on a steady state, we should do 15 to 20. And on the IFM space, we should do between 12 to 15. So that is what it is. But last year, it will be slightly muted. I mean, last year, I'm saying March 25, we should do about 12, 13%. But however, that's because of the exit strategy and all of certain customers. So ideally, we should grow 15% on the IFM space and about 20% to be best, because this year we'll grow at 21, but at a steady state 20%. And as the size becomes bigger, that's going to be great. And more inorganic will happen in that space. So that is in addition to this 20% growth. So this is the plan for the next 5-10 years. But in 10 years, a little long, I think we could look at 5 years.
Right. So, and maybe if you can talk a bit about the airport side of the business that will also do, right? So,
Yeah, we
you
have
two areas where you're working with the airports on, right? So,
yeah, good. See, one is the IFM piece, which we do in almost about 8, 9, or 10 airports, including Delhi, where the IFM in the airports is the back-end maintenance of all the facilities or utilities of an airport. Should be power backup, water, fire systems, air conditioning, the complete engineering part. So that is something which UDS has been doing under IFM. And we have been leaders there. I told you we do, but including Delhi, 1, 2, 3, the largest airports. We do Bangalore, we do Thiruvananthapuram, we do about 10 or 12 airports across the country. So that's the IFM piece of that. We also did an acquisition in the ground handling business, which is called Global Flight Handling, where we have in the ground handling, it's a concession business. It's not a contract business. We have a 10-year concession to operate in that airport. We have 22 airports. All our airports are B airports. When I say B airport, they're not a metro airport. One conscious reason being metro airports require a lot of assets, investment into assets. So we consciously felt we should not be getting into the asset business, because the more assets you buy, the more you grow. We don't want to do that. So the B and C airports assets are less because they're smaller airports. Our biggest airport is Pune. Otherwise, we have airports like Ayodhya, we have airports like Tirupati, we have airports like Mangalore, we have got airports like Mysore. So this is the kind of airports we have. So we have a 10-year concessions in these airports. It has just started from last 2 years, or the first 2 years back, we started Pune. Last year we took, I think, Surat and Patna, Vizag, Raipur. This year we've added all the 20. So this year we'll start getting, at least from next quarter onwards, we'll start getting 100% of our revenue. So far it has just been bits and pieces. We've been losing money there. For the last 2 years, we would have lost about 5, 6, 7 crores respectively each year. This year we'll turn profitable, and next year onwards it starts giving us, because all airports will start firing. So that is the airport business. When I say ground handling, the concession is the moment an aircraft lands until it takes off, we do everything. Right from baggage, right from water, electricity, and the power from the ground when the plane is, standing. Then we give the air conditioning. We do everything but for fueling the airport. Then we push the aircraft back to take off. So we have 30 minutes to do this. In many of these airlines, we also do the passenger side. That means the ticketing, this boarding pass, the baggage. For many, that we do. And for all airlines, we do the ramp side, which I said about the aircraft being readied and then pushed back. So that is the story. From next year, Global starts all airports, and then we become profitable. Last 2 years, I think roughly 7, 8 crores. Radha, you can correct me. We have been losing because it takes 1, 2 years gestation period for the airports to take off. And we still have a 10 plus 1 year concession with them.
Right. But on the airline side, if you look at it, right, Air India had its own business, which is doing. Indigo does it. So the two biggest ones have been doing it on their own pretty much. What do you see any change in there, which is a potential, opportunity? And I guess SpiceJet recently raising money would be good news for you, right? So
Yes, SpiceJet is our customer already everywhere, because
Right.
earlier SpiceJet was in doing insourcing, but the moment we had been in all our airports, SpiceJet have outsourced to us. Now coming to the point of Air India and Indigo, when we bid for these airports, we knew these two airlines, which is the largest airlines, are not doing outsourcing. They were insourcing. So our business plan was that these two airlines will not be business for us. However, the good news is Air India has now floated a RFP. They are outsourcing. The bidding process is on. It's just a matter of time. We'll know whether we get it or who get it, but they are outsourcing. So the good thing is Air India started outsourcing, because their agreement with the government company called AITSL is over, I think, as of this December this year. So that's why they floated the RFPs. So it is being outsourced and it's public domain.
Sorry, sir. So basically, when Air India was bought by Tata, they didn't take this company.
Yes, they
This
did
is
not
still
buy
owned by
the
the
ground
government,
handling.
right? The facility management company is still owned by the government.
Yeah. So that's why they are outsourcing. So that's right now in public domain. It's a RFP they floated. We have also participated. So Air India has started outsourcing. Indigo, we don't know, but they have all the kind of incentives to outsource. Because earlier, the government rule was you have to pay 30% royalty to any outsourced agency. They have to pay 30%. Now the government has cut it to 3%. So it makes sense for them to also outsource. But however, we did not account that in our business plan. When we bid for these airports, we knew Indigo is not going to be a customer. If it comes, it's a big icing on the cake.
Sure, sir. I think great, sir. Deep, I'll hand it over to you to take it from here.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks, sir, thanks, ma'am,
Thank you.
for doing this. So I think that was a very good overview of your business. I think one question which has always come to us is that this space is still largely informal or unorganized, and typically there have been cases where people continue to fight on margins. Despite that, we've practically been, as you said earlier, leaders in most of our businesses. Sir, I think if you could just help us understand what is the moat here, because if you are leaders for a couple of years, that's understandable. You have been leaders for a decade now, or more than that, and even in business services, that's the case. Although we've acquired them recently, but they have been leaders for quite some time. So, if you could help explain what is that moat, and because if that is understood, then we
Yeah.
can build in that the leadership will continue for a very long period.
Sure. I'll just give an example. That's the best way to explain this. See, I have customers like Infosys or a Hyundai or a Caterpillar or a Toyota. We've taken names of large MNCs, right? And they've been with my customers at least last 20, 25 years. Now, when I say that, leaders, all these customers, clients have got a process. It's just because you have a business with them is not going to extend it or renew it every year on year on year. So they would definitely again do a discovery of everything, price discovery, technology discovery, your deliverables discovery. So they will float out RFPs every 2-3 years.
Right.
So if you still continue to win them, it's just not given that just because you have a large MNC customer, he's going to continue with you for the next 20 years. Because all our contracts are maximum 3 years to 4 years. We also have majority of our contracts which are just annual contracts. So why I said this example was, unless until you are up to what they want, up to the expectations, up to the best what the industry delivers, you will not be able to continue with them. So that's the example, like we are on our toes, we keep improving our deliverables, we keep improving technology, we keep improving our people and every front. And you know how the customers are, they always want to cut the cost year on year. They don't want to pay you more. So that means you need to be more and more efficient. So that is what we have done. That's how we've got these customers for so many years. If we give you a rough statistics, I think 70% of our customers will be more than 10 years old. It's not because they are customers. They are even more stickier than your new customers. Because they would go on the best, they would discover, they would float out things. So we need to be in the forefront in terms of technology and our delivery. So that's how we've been leaders. The acquired businesses, they were already leaders. It's not that they were number 4 or number 3, we turned them around or no. All of them have been number 1. Denave has been number 1 in the sales enablement. Athene has been number 1 in the BPO business, in the BFSI space. Matrix undoubtedly has been number 1 in the audit and assurance space. In the employee background, they have been number 3. They still remain to be number 3. All our business, like global, even though it's such a new one, we've got 22 airports. We are the largest there in the B and C segment because we're clear in what segment we want to be. We're clear what we want to be. We've been leaders there because we put a lot of work. We put a lot of investment on technology. We believe we want to be leaders. So that's how we've been leaders.
Right. No, so this is impressive. So yes, I hear you that you've invested in people and efficiency, and I'll come to that pricing part in a bit because it's only that how you retain your pricing. But if you could just help us better understand when you say invested in technology, what are a few examples, and how do we ensure that we remain ahead of the curve here?
Yeah. Let me start with the IFM and then go to BSS. BSS, we've been investing even much more. See, IFM is basically, if you look at minus technology as people, hands and legs.
Correct.
Whatever work we do, whether you do engineering work, whether you do cleaning work, whether you do soft services, whatever you do. So what we brought in there is we also invested a minority investment, I think 4 or 5 years back into a small robotic company called Obots in Pune.
Yes.
Obots does all the cleaning robots. So we have started, I think we already have about 40 or 45 robots running across our facilities. So we've started investing in them way back 4 or 5 years back. We've even invested in that company because we wanted to have a kind of a stake there so we could make slightly custom built robots for us. So I'm giving an example of what on technology. The same thing, because cleaning, that's the only way you can do automation. There's nothing else you can do. Now coming to engineering and all, we kept on investing on how do we maintain a facility or an asset at the best possible price, at the best possible output. So we've invested lots in our own technology called InCon, which is intelligent and connected, where we connect assets, manage them, operate them digitally and remotely. Like I can operate the HVAC system of a facility sitting anywhere. So
Wow.
that is the kind of technology we've been. This is what has been happening last 10 years. And we've invested more and more in this. And then we've become more and more digital in all the services we do. It's digital. Even my electrician can see on his phone what's happening, and then he can take an action. His tickets can be raised on the phone. So these are all just digital initiatives which has been happening. So this is on the IFM place, which is more difficult to bring in technology, is what we have brought. But it's
Right.
taken us years. So this is where you can improve efficiency. This is where you can improve that 1%, 2% margins. So on the BSS space has always been a tech-driven one, right from Matrix, which does background verification, they do digitally. If you look at 2 years back, Matrix margins would have been double what they are today. That was because IT hiring went up 2 years back. And then we did not have to spend the same amount because the same guy output can be given by the same guy. I don't need to increase my fixed cost because my revenue is going to go up. So that's always been a digital platform. Deneve, the lead generation business has always been digital. Now we've gone into AI, we built AI platforms, we've outsourced some, we've insourced some. So all the leads are generated digitally, automated. So that is a continuous process. So that's why we didn't even kind of capitalize it. We said this is going to happen every year. This is not going to stop. So we just expand it out. So that's how we've been able to retain the #1 spot.
Right. No, this is very interesting. So the whole idea is that you've been doing this for years, and maybe in terms of execution, it only shows up uh,
Yes.
when the business comes back, as you said in the verification piece. Understood. So then I think this is a good way to go into the pricing part, because there have always been questions, especially in the outsourcing businesses, that it's like the margins or a pricing is raised to the bottom, and then what happens here is that we have to bring in own efficiencies, and then it's only practical till a certain point. However, we've seen that we've grown reasonably well over the last many years. So how would you characterize your pricing power, and what has been your experience? And then do you think that after a certain point, say with these investments and with this type of repute that you build, pricing power should not be a problem for us? We'll be able to take price hikes, or whichever way you quantify. That should not really be a worrisome issue for us.
Yep. It would be wrong to tell that just because you're delivering something great, you will be able to get your price. The customer will not pay you. I've seen that over the
Okay.
years. He's not going
Right.
to pay you. But where he will pay you is improve your own efficiency. You build it. One is by size, two is by mix of business. Because in my manufacturing and industrial pays higher margin. So get more of business share there. Two is bring in technology to improve our own efficiency, because the customer ultimately would want to see all that, but I don't think he'll pay you everything. So you improve your efficiency. More important, the IFM space, the scale is a big thing. It's a scale game. So I'm doing about 17, 1800s of IFM business, and only in the UDS business. if I make it 2,500 crores of only IFM business in the UDS, my fixed costs come down drastically. It doesn't go proportionate to the growth. That's one. Business mix is one. Actually, we have even called it out. I said we will grow at least 30 bips, 35 points year on year by efficiency.
Right.
That's something which we have got as a policy. We will do that, and we have done this. Even this year, we've done that. Radha can give you the numbers. We've done that. We will improve that without anything, just by scale, the economies of scale and technology efficiency improves. Now, in the BSS space, is quite different, because the more in a BSS, what all our BSS business does is either they improve productivity of our customers, or they generate money for our customers by generating sales leads, or by improving productivity by processing and claims. And all our businesses in BSS technically are making money for our customers, or improving productivity. So there you have better opportunity to ask for more, because the customer will pay you because he's making money. Whereas the IFM space, it's a spend for him. He's spending to maintain his facility. He's spending to maintain. So that's the difference. So we see that with greater product and technology, you can go for a price hike there. You will not be able to get a 10% increase. You may get a 2% increase. So that is something which is a possibility. But in IFM, I'll be wrong to tell you, if I deliver some great service, the customer will pay me another 3% more. He will not. So it's only our efficiency we need to do, which we have already internally planned, and we will do that 30 to 50 basis points also. But to be conservative, 30 points year on year we'll do by efficiency, and by mix of services, and by size. Overall, we should grow. I can see Radha has the numbers. If at all is interested, we can get into that. But this is largely how the market is.
Right. Interesting, sir. No, this is.
And the technology also helps us in this processing, right? While Raghu mentioned about high level, but at small level also we are getting into technology. How do I reduce the number of people who are processing attendance? How do I reduce the number of people who are generating the invoices? Can I use bots? We've started using bots everywhere. He also started initially the government support. It used to take 2-3 days to get certain registration. Now we are using bot to get certain registration done out of the government. So all this is supposed to help us in cost reduction while our customer price keeps coming down. We'll try to manage it through cost reduction.
Right.
Process improvements as well.
Understood. No, this is useful. Sir, so I think you did mention at some length that you are very optimistic about the new labor law and how it will further ease compliance for us. So, if you could spend some time actually having some more granular abilities or granular information about what aspects of labor law will help us. So one would be registration, right? The other would be sourcing of manpower. And the third would be forcing the informal industry to either adhere to the norms. So if you could spend some time explaining how would each of these help us, and of course, if I miss something, then even that.
Sure. See, all these laws are nothing new. They've always been there. Only thing, they've been very cumbersome. They've been very difficult. They've been bits and pieces. They've not been in one clear platform. Now that is what the new labor law does. And there is ambiguity. Lots of ambiguities are very, like I told you about the gratuity. If it's a short-term contract, it's just 1 year, I don't need to even say there is no gray area now. I'll say that 1 year you worked, I don't have to pay you gratuity. You need a gratuity rule says 4.5 years. All that is gone. It's very clear. 1 year work, pay him for that 1 year, and then close the deal. Same thing I told you, registration, you can do it across the country. Now these we need to still see, because these are all still not implemented. It will happen in the next 1-2 quarters. Then we will clearly know much more details. I'm telling you at a broader level, the moment we saw it, it not necessarily mean the unorganized player is going to go away. So that is very clear in my mind, because when GST came, that's what we all thought. We thought, this GST will bring in a lot of regulations, and everybody, even unorganized player, has to pay the same thing, so that delta is lost. But that didn't happen. The unorganized player sector still happens to remain water. But I think I don't have exact data, but I think slowly the organized sector is taking the unorganized sector business very slowly, maybe 2% every year.
Okay.
That little. It is not that the unorganized has vanished. So it's not
Right.
that they're not good. Probably they are also following many of the things. But 100% there are some things in this new law which will define that some of the things you can't avoid. That gray becomes more and more clearer. So that's when we have to see whether the unorganized guys, because if you really look at it, the margin of unorganized guys more than us, more than the organized players. A
Correct.
large 4
Correct.
5 player, we doing 5% margin. I am sure unorganized will be doing close to double-digit margins. They'll
Right.
be doing 9-10% margin. It is not that they are cheaper. For the customer, it is cheaper because he's able to manage certain things. And that's it. So we
Correct.
don't know with the new labor code. I am not going to, because already I told you once we thought when GST came, everything will get so organized. The unorganized players will not be there. That is not the case. The unorganized players still there. Probably we are taking 1% of their share every year or 2% max. So that is not going to go away at all. So we are yet to see that. So let's wait for this to unfold. Then we'll
Correct.
know clearly the benefits. Probably the next time we talk, I can clearly tell this is the benefits we have.
Correct. Correct.
And we are already compliant with respect to the compensation structuring and other thing. When we learned about what is expected out of the new labor code, we have changed everybody's compensation. So that way, maybe the unorganized players will have a hit financially, but we are anyway compliant on the compensation side. So that
Right.
should be an advantage for us.
Right. Understood. So one last question. So you said that, and we've seen you being present across 18 countries. Um, so how has that international business experience been? And um, so you should just give us some idea about how those countries operate. Are there better margins there? Are we moving towards that? And does that open up a very large opportunity size for us, which we aren't forecasting today? I know you are very conservative, but if you could just help us understand a bit more here.
No, these countries, I'll just clarify it. We do operate only in Dene. We have people
Right.
outside of India where they sit in Malaysia, little small, because these customers want our physical presence also in these countries. Otherwise, our operation Dene is a global vendor for large customers like Microsoft, SAP, Lenovo. So these are global prices. So our pricing does not matter whether we operate from Singapore, Malaysia, UK, Korea, or India. So that is just for being the present. Whereas the other, let's say, Matrix, which does the claims processing for large FMCG companies, they sit in India and operate those countries. So your kind of margins are much higher.
Right.
So we do the processing of claims. We do, I think, $4-5 billion of claims processing. So we do it everything out of India, out of Bangalore and Chennai. So it's more like a BPO kind of a transaction work, but with more and more technology, because we can't have people and keep doing processing claims. So we're doing everything automated now on an AI platform. So there, yes, our margins will improve, but I don't want to, because we've just introduced the last quarter. We don't want to change our numbers. We will stick to our numbers or whatever. We will grow at that 15%. We will be leaders at about 7.5% EBITDA. So that's what we will do this year. But if you look at numbers, we look like we have doubled from last year.
Understood. Understood. Perfect. No, sir, this was very useful. I'll hand it back to Sanjeev, sir.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of last questions.
Yeah.
One was I wanted, again, this is from our discussion that we have had already, but I wanted to, just for broader audience, I wanted to kind of bring out an interesting aspect that we talked about, which is why Foxconn today is not a great client, but it can become a pretty big client, let's say, going forward. It also brings out the nuances of the regulation, so that'll be pretty interesting if you can talk about that.
Sure, we can. It's just not Foxconn. There are many new
Sure.
companies. They
I
come
was just saying one example, yeah.
Yeah, one example. They're large, outfits in India. See, they have certain concessions when they open shop in India. That at that scale is, for example, an example like they did not pay bonuses. They are allowed by law for 3 years or 5 years or some law until they become profitable, or the first 3 years they don't need to pay, something like that, which is legal for them. But when they outsource to people like us, we are profitable and we are not 3 years old or 5 years old. We are not new. So they are my employees. For all practical purpose, the employer is me. He only works at Foxconn place. Foxconn is an example. So these are things which we will not be compliant. So a smaller player or a newer player who's just started shop could be, because this bonus is a big component. It's about 8-10% component of your labor cost, which is 100% is labor cost. So especially, I mean, it's more like a staffing kind of business. So these are companies which once they get out of that bracket, they are clear-cut businesses for us. There are many. It's not that anybody is violating, but the government gives you incentives that you don't need to pay certain, certain of these rules or these statutory payments.
Right. That's pretty interesting because I think as India gets more organized and you have more players like Foxcons of the day coming in, your addressable market over a period of time, as they become more profitable, actually becomes pretty interesting.
Yes, it becomes very interesting because India is also becoming a large manufacturing hub. So I think there could be more and more players. Even recently, we have signed up with Tata Power in Tamil Nadu. So there are many large manufacturing coming in India.
Right. In fact, it's a perfect point that you made for my last question, which was you are sitting at a very interesting vantage point where you are seeing what is unfolding in India. One on the manufacturing side. Also, I think hiring on the IT side, you have a good vantage point. So maybe if you can talk about some of the macro factors that you are seeing, it'll be good for us to kind of hear.
Yeah. See, I told you, like the hiring for us last 2 years in the IT was really muted, or really there was no hiring. They're only doing a refilling. So we see, because we have been we would know about the IT hiring at least 1-2 quarters before, because we need to be prepared. So I see a lot of green shoot there. I see a lot of growth happening. I'm not saying the hiring is going to go back to what had happened 2 years back, but I see an improvement there because we see our numbers going up. I mean, the number of people we are doing the verifications. So that's something which is interesting. However, again, I told you we didn't know this at the beginning of the year. So we took a conservative number, like what it was the previous years, and we're working. That's why we will meet those numbers very comfortably. So, I mean, that's what it happened. I mean, is with IT hiring.
And in terms of manufacturing as a hiring, especially organized manufacturing at that, what are you seeing, sir? Like, what has been your experience?
We see manufacturing growing very fast. I've told you, we've signed up 2-3 large companies in manufacturing in South and in Gujarat, in the East and the West. We find that really exciting. I think the next 2-3 years, we could even revise the kind of, if this is what is manufacturing going to go, we could revise our IFM numbers a little bit, couple of points more. So I see all these things there. And I see ourselves getting that opportunity because we are very strong in manufacturing. There are very hardly any player who competes with us in the manufacturing space. There's no real organized player there. So I told you the names is we do all the bigger names, like from a Bosch to a Toyota to a Caterpillar to a Hyundai across. So I find that very exciting the next 2-3 years. As you said, the newer companies like a Foxconn, Odd would come into the mainstay in the next 2-3 years. That's another great opportunity for us.
Great. So anything that you want to mention that or highlight that we've missed out in this conversation? It's been pretty interesting conversation. And
I don't think there's much you missed out, but I would just want to say overall, what is the game? What is the plan? I think the next 5 years, or between 5 and 10, or let's say next 5 years from today, we want to build the best kind of a services platform, B2B, anything to do with services, either manufacturing, non-manufacturing, across business services. We already have 5-6 large critical business services. We will add more of this if it is adding value to the business which we do, if it is adjacent to the business we do. In 5 years' time, we already are pretty large. We already have a very broad platform. We will build probably the country's best business platform, B2B across services, could be manufacturing, could be non-manufacturing. So this is what is our strategy to become. We are very much on the way to do that.
Great, sir. I think sounds very exciting, and I think we are ahead with exciting times. Wishing you all
Yeah.
the very best.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting company, and I'm sure it'll be much, much bigger over the next few years.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you, Sanjeev.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Raghu, so
Yeah,
much. And
thank you,
thanks,
Deep.
Radha.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, Deep. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.